Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. Stick around, you won't believe how this job interview turned into something I've waited 5 years for. I'm sorry, I just need a moment, she said, her voice trembling, the resume slipping from her hands. I leaned back in my chair, folded my arms, and waited. She stared at me, really stared. That kind of stare where a person's mind is racing backward in time, desperately trying to match a familiar face with the context they never expected. She finally recognized me. I didn't say her name. I didn't need to, because 5 years ago, she left me for another man, with a note that read, "Don't wait for me. You never challenge me." She cleaned out our savings, filed for divorce before I could even respond, and ghosted me from her life as if I'd been nothing more than a placeholder until something shinier came along. Now, she was sitting across from me in a high-rise office downtown, in a blazer that didn't quite fit, interviewing for a job. With me, the man she discarded, as the hiring manager. Fate doesn't always knock. Sometimes it walks right through the door and heals in a portfolio. She tried to smile, fake, fragile. "Emery, I didn't realize you—" "Yeah," I interrupted, still calm. "I'm the decision maker now." Silence. Just a week ago, her application had landed in our system under a different last name. I almost deleted it out of pure reflex, but I didn't. Something in me wanted to know, to see, what became of the woman who shattered me like fine china. And the twist? She didn't even know I existed anymore, until today. Now, before you judge me, you need to understand what she did, the full picture. Because this wasn't just a breakup. This was a betrayal with layers, lies, manipulation, and secrets so petty they'd be hilarious if they hadn't wrecked the man I used to be. But don't worry, I'm going to tell you everything. From the moment she blindsided me, to the moment I gave her a choice in that interview room that she'll never forget. And no, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't call her names. I did something much worse. She thought I never saw the note. That sloppy little thing she left behind, half tucked under the lamp on the dresser, like she couldn't even be bothered to hand it to me. 5 years ago, she left that note and vanished from my life. She never even packed everything. Some of her clothes were still in the closet when I got home. A steaming cup of tea was left on the kitchen counter. She must have written it in a hurry. Maybe he was waiting in the car. The note said, "Don't wait up. You'll find someone better suited for your kind of life." No name, no apology, just those words and the sickening feeling that I had been fired from my own marriage. She didn't even tell me his name. I found out months later when our joint bank account pinged with a charge from a resort, registered under hers and his name. So, you'll understand why, when she walked into that interview room last week, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel vindicated. What I felt was something colder. I looked at her, her nervous hands, the way she glanced at the exits like the walls might collapse. And I thought, she has no idea what's coming. I waited until she calmed down and opened her folder again. She tried to talk like we were strangers. I let her. "So, Marla," I said, voice even, like I was reading a weather report, "I noticed a gap in your work history, nearly 3 years. Can you walk me through that?" Her mouth twitched. "Yes, I relocated, and I was helping someone build a startup, but it fell through. That someone was him, the guy she left me for. I knew because I had looked him up after the divorce. Of course I had. I saw the business go under, the bankruptcy filing, the social media posts that stopped abruptly. At the time, I told myself I didn't care, but I did. Every day. I just never said it out loud. Now, she was trying to pretend she had always been the professional one, the victim of economic misfortune. She didn't know I'd watched it all unravel, quietly. I let her keep talking. She rambled about resilience, teamwork, rebuilding. It was surreal, hearing her pitch a new version of herself, like the old one had never detonated my life. Then she said something that made my stomach turn. "I believe in second chances." I looked her dead in the eyes and replied, "Do you?" The pause was everything. She finally knew who I was, and the real interview was just beginning. For a few seconds, the room fell silent. The hum of the overhead lights, the distant ring of a phone down the hall, those were the only sounds. She didn't say anything right away, and I watched the shift in her eyes, like a fog lifting to reveal something she didn't want to face. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The charm, the confidence, the smooth facade she'd worn like armor. Gone? You're Emery, she finally said, like she had just remembered the name of a ghost. I didn't smile, I didn't nod. I just tapped my pen against the edge of the notepad slowly and asked, "Still believe in second chances?" She flinched like the words slapped her. "I didn't know you worked here. I wouldn't have..." What? Applied, walked into the interview, pretended we didn't have history. I said it evenly, like I wasn't the man she had once left without warning, like I hadn't spent months trying to figure out what I did wrong. Her eyes darted to the resume on the table between us. "I really need this job," she said quietly. I'm not the same person I was then. Neither was I. And maybe that was the most unsettling part of all. Because 5 years ago, I would have forgiven her. I would have tried to talk it through. I would have asked if it was my fault, if I wasn't enough. I would have begged. But the man sitting across from her now didn't feel small. He didn't feel broken. He felt in control. "You said you were helping someone build a company," I said, leaning forward slightly. "What happened?" Her throat tightened. It didn't work out. Professionally or personally?" She winced. "Both?" I paused, then slid her resume back toward her. "Marla, I've got to be honest with you. The job requires someone who's reliable, stable, someone who doesn't run the moment things get inconvenient." Her hands tensed, and her voice came out more desperate than before. "I've changed, I swear. What happened between us? I'm not here to rehash the past," I cut in, cold but calm. "You came here for a job. That's what this is. Nothing more." But that was a lie. This wasn't just a job interview anymore. It was the start of something she couldn't predict, because I had one final question for her, one that would shatter the new image she had built for herself, and I already knew the answer. She sat perfectly still, like if she moved even slightly, the chair beneath her might vanish. I could see her calculating, searching my face for any sign of mercy, any trace of the man I used to be. But that version of me didn't exist anymore. She buried him with a 6-line note and a shared bank account transfer. I leaned back just enough to show her I wasn't rushing this. I wanted her to squirm a little longer. Then I asked casually, "Did you ever regret it?" Her mouth opened, but no words came. She blinked, shook her head lightly, as if the question had caught her off guard, which was funny, considering I'd been waiting 5 years to ask it. "Regret what exactly?" she finally said, pretending she didn't know. Classic Marla, always buying time with vagueness. I didn't let her. Leaving me the way you did. Walking out without a conversation, without a goodbye, just a note, a bank withdrawal, a name I didn't recognize showing up in our account history. Her eyes dropped to the floor. I continued, voice steady. "I saw the photos. The weekend at Lakeview, the wine bar check-ins. You weren't hiding it. You were documenting it. You were proud of it." She looked up, and for a moment, I thought she might actually own it. I braced for a cold, unapologetic confession. But instead, she whispered, "I thought he was what I wanted." I was wrong. I let the silence stretch. She kept talking. "He promised me a new life, said I was too talented to be stuck with someone who wasn't going anywhere." There it was, the old jab, wrapped in self-pity. Like her betrayal had been an act of liberation, like I was the weight she needed to drop to ascend. "And now?" I asked. She laughed once. It wasn't joy, it was exhaustion. "He drained everything, my savings, my credit, my family's patience. He walked away the moment his name wasn't trending. So," I said, leaning forward, "you want to come back to a safer life. One with health insurance and paychecks that actually clear?" "That's not fair," she said sharply. "I'm not crawling back to you. I didn't even know you worked here. But now you do," I said, my voice quiet but full of intent. "And I know everything you said that day. The day you left. I wasn't enough, remember? Predictable, dull, small." She bit her lip, her eyes glassy. "People say things when they're chasing illusions." I smiled, not out of spite, but because the irony was finally too loud to ignore. "Do you want to know what this company's motto is, Marla?" I asked. She looked confused, unsure if it was a trick. "We don't hire people running from their past. We hire people who've built something from it." And right now, I was trying to figure out which one she was. She didn't respond. She just sat there, hands clenched, mascara threatening to smudge beneath her eyes. I could tell she was weighing her words now, scared to say the wrong thing. Not because she respected me, but because she realized I held power over something she desperately needed, a second chance at stability. I didn't say anything for a long moment. I wanted her to sit in it, not out of cruelty, but because for once, she couldn't run. No exit door, no half-truths, no Chase with his designer smiles waiting in a black car outside. Just her, and me, and all the wreckage between us, neatly compressed into a single job interview. Then I opened my drawer and pulled out a thin manila envelope. Her name was written on it in faint pen. She looked at it like it was radioactive. Slowly I placed it on the table between us and pushed it forward. Her voice cracked. What is that? You remember the night you left? The night I found your note and the bank account nearly empty, I said, watching her eyes fix on the envelope. What you don't know is that I didn't just cry and move on. I did something else. She reached for it hesitantly, but I stopped her. No, not yet. You'll open that when this interview ends. Whatever happens here, you'll take it with you. Why? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because closure isn't something I ever got, I replied. And you don't get to walk into my office, rewrite the narrative, and pretend we were just two people who drifted apart. That's not how this ends. She looked away again, blinking hard. I could feel her unraveling, not just because she needed the job, but because she could sense the life she'd carefully reconstructed was now brushing up against the one she bulldozed to get there. But here's the thing. I wasn't looking for revenge. I didn't want to ruin her. I wanted something simpler. I wanted the truth. The version of the story she never told me. The one she whispered to her friends or told herself when she looked in the mirror. The one where I was nothing more than a chapter she skipped over. So I asked her one more question. The real one. Did you ever tell him about me? I said. Or did you just erase me? And her silence was louder than any answer. She didn't blink. She didn't nod. She didn't even pretend to be confused. She just stared down at her lap, like the answer was carved into her hands. And right there, in the middle of a high-rise office in Chicago, I got the confirmation I'd waited years for. She hadn't just left me, she'd erased me. That's what cut the deepest. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't even the way she disappeared, without giving me the chance to fix what I didn't know was broken. It was the way she rewrote history. In her world, I didn't even exist. I'd seen it on social media back then. Her new life started 2 days after she walked out. She was in California, smiling beside him at a vineyard. The caption read, "When you finally find your true beginning." And now, 5 years later, she couldn't even look me in the eye when I asked if she'd ever mentioned me. It's strange how silence can say more than any sentence. I didn't push her to answer. I didn't need to. The weight of it was already filling the room. She took a slow breath, her voice barely audible when she finally spoke. I was ashamed, she said. Not of you. Of what I did. Of who I became with him. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But part of me wondered if she was ashamed because she failed. If Chase had built that dream business like he promised, would she be sitting across from me right now? You never called, I said. Not even when it all collapsed. I didn't think I had the right, she replied, and for once, I think she meant it. For a long moment, I just looked at her. Not with anger. Not with pity. Just observation. Like I was finally seeing the real version of someone I used to build my future around. And she looked small. Not weak. Just human. Flawed. Worn down by her own choices. I pushed the envelope a little closer toward her. The interview's almost over, I said. She swallowed. What's in it? Something you left behind, I said. Something you forgot mattered. And just like that, I stood up. I walked to the door, turned the handle, and said, "You'll get a call by Friday. Until then, take that with you." She looked up, stunned. "You're still considering me for the job?" I didn't answer, because what she didn't know was the decision had already been made, and it had nothing to do with the resume she handed me. She left the room holding the envelope like it might explode. I watched her walk down the hallway, slower than when she arrived. She didn't look back. I didn't expect her to. Once the door clicked shut behind her, I sat alone for a moment and let the silence settle over everything. No victory, no satisfaction, just the hum of the overhead lights and the echo of a conversation that should have happened 5 years ago, but never did. I hadn't originally planned to give her anything, but the envelope, it had been in my drawer for years. I almost threw it out dozens of times. Once I even lit a match and held it near the edge. But I couldn't do it. Not because I was holding on to her, that part of me died long ago, but because sometimes the past deserves a grave, not a garbage can. Inside the envelope wasn't a letter. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even personal. It was a photo of her and me, taken on our second anniversary. We were standing in front of the tiny cabin we rented in Vermont, laughing like idiots. She was in that oversized sweater I used to call the blanket with sleeves, and I had chocolate on my chin from the s'mores she insisted we burn on purpose. It was one of those stupid, candid moments you don't realize matters until later. On the back, I'd written something small in pencil. If this is the beginning, I can't wait to see the middle. That was the version of us she walked away from. The version I grieved, the version she rewrote without warning. Giving it back wasn't about guilt or hope or punishment. It was just returning what never belonged to me alone. Later that evening, as the office emptied out, I got a message from reception. She left something at the front desk. I almost ignored it. But curiosity got the better of me. It was a sealed envelope, same size, same type, but with no name. Inside was her resume, torn clean down the middle, no note, just silence again. But this time, it said everything. I didn't chase her, I didn't text, I didn't call. And when Friday came, I didn't schedule a follow-up. She already knew what the answer was. She'd given it to herself, when she ripped her resume in half and left it behind like a page she never wanted to rewrite again. I didn't feel triumphant. That's not what this was. It wasn't about winning or punishing her. It was about finally seeing the story for what it was. Not a tragedy, not a revenge tale, just a chapter that needed an ending. And quietly, without yelling or vindictive speeches, that's what we gave each other. She had been a turning point in my life. Not the one I asked for, but maybe the one I needed. Because if she hadn't left, I never would have built the life I have now. I never would have taken risks, pushed myself, grown past the version of me she thought would never change. A week later, I walked into my office and found something taped under the drawer. An old post-it I must have missed for years. It was in her handwriting, probably written before everything fell apart. Just 5 words. "You're more than you know." I don't know why she left it. Maybe she meant it, maybe she didn't. But reading it now, it didn't sting anymore. It didn't feel like a ghost. It just felt done. And that's the real story. Not one of revenge, but of survival, of rebuilding, of learning that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to the past is nothing at all. Just letting it walk out while you stay behind and keep going. To anyone watching this, life has a weird way of circling back when you least expect it. Not to haunt you, not to hurt you, but maybe, just maybe, to heal something you didn't know was still open. Thanks for watching. And now, your turn. What's one historical moment where someone faced a betrayal and turned it into something better? Tell us in the comments. You're on Reddit Confessions, and we'll see you in the next story.